Hello, everyone. My virtual background's not working, so you can see the green screen behind me, but that's fine. This is the second part of my interview. I previously interviewed Clyde Shavers, and now I'll be interviewing Carrie Kennedy, who is the other candidate for LD10 Position 1. So, without any further ado, I will bring her on. Hi, Carrie. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Richard. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties I've run into all of a sudden, but
That's
looks
okay.
looks like everything else is going well. So I just wanted to start out by asking one, how the campaign's going, and do you have any? Are you going to be in any places around here soon, or?
Well, the campaign's getting underway. As most people know, I virtually did this alone and by myself with the help of, a few people and some financial support. So I'm looking forward to moving into a different realm, and it's exciting. I'm getting some good support, and I think people are engaged, and that's the exciting part for me. So.
Oh, good.
Events right now, not that I've got a lot of, engagements to personal type, like one-on-one company or something like that, but nothing that's real public yet.
Okay. Well, keep us posted, and obviously, we want to make sure that all that information is getting out. So I'm going to ask you some very similar questions that I asked of Clyde.
Okay.
And one of them is, what are your thoughts on the initiative process, and will you push to keep it if you're elected?
So initiative process is actually one of the issues that's come to light recently that I have taken a very vast interest in, just for the fact that it is our last hope for the voters. And there's been some discussion that the Democrats are going to try to squash that any way possible. And I will definitely be 100% supporting keeping that process, because it's important that the voters have a voice. And when the referendum process with the Emergency Powers Act went into play and that was removed, the initiative process really is the only option that the voters have. So I will be a huge advocate for that.
All right. Well, perfect. So we've got 7 initiatives that are going to be on the ballot
Right.
in Washington. I was wondering,
Four.
There's 4.
Are there 4 initiatives?
I think there were 7 total. I think
Total.
4 might make it on the ballot because 3 already passed. You're right.
Right.
So yeah, no, we'll have 4 total initiatives. So of the 3 that passed, though, I assume that you would have supported those.
Definitely. Yep.
So you support the police being able to pursue criminals, particularly
Definitely.
violent criminals.
Yes.
You support school choice.
Yes.
You support the other one was against an income tax in Washington State.
Yes.
Now, one thing that was, and I wish I'd asked Clyde this, but it slipped because I had so many other questions to get to. But I'm going to ask you. One thing that's happened with the income tax is they've kind of figured out a way to circumvent that with this new "you must buy your senior care" law that prevents you from, which basically you get, I think, $36,000 even if you pay into it since you were 18. So basically, it's an income tax, and if you leave Washington State for any reason, you don't get it.
Yeah, you can't take it with you. Exactly.
So my question to you is, will you work to try and get rid of that? Is there a reason that maybe you support it? What do you think?
Well, I think one of the reasons most people are here in Washington State is because it's one of the few states left that doesn't have an income tax. And so my real question is, why would, in particular, the Democrats want to change that? Because to me, that's just a road for people leaving. And we've already got quite a problem in the state in general. So I would definitely not want to see an income tax in this state. So,
and even if they try and convince you it's not an income tax, it's something else that you're paying for.
Yeah,
so
they'll just turn around and find a different name for it. And that's why I think it's important that we get really solid candidates that are able to see through that and align themselves with other like-minded people so that we're constantly, on our guard, watching for those very things, because what's happening in Olympia for a very long time are the bills that are getting passed, and we don't have the checks and balances. Just, talking about the initiative with the police pursuit. If we would have had the majority back in 2022 of Republicans that wouldn't have made all these ridiculous laws that impacted our law enforcement, we wouldn't have to have an initiative. So the whole process of legislation to turn around and then have to do an initiative, it just seems like a complete waste of time in so many ways. Why don't we do common sense, smart legislation to begin with, so we don't have to keep spending and wasting time and money on an initiative process? So
yeah, no, you're raising a good point.
I'm excited to be running, because I think that we need people like me in Olympia that are going to, raise the flag and let the people know what's going on versus, just sitting in Olympia legislating.
Well, that's good to hear. Yeah, one thing that many people probably don't know is that initiatives are extremely expensive. If you want to get them on the ballot, you've got to get the signatures. You've got to pay people to go out and collect the signatures. So if we didn't have Brian Haywood putting the bill for it, we wouldn't have these initiatives on the ballot.
Well, we might find some other people, but the thing that has always kind of marveled me with the people that I've met in the last 5 years is somebody like Brian Hayward has a vested interest. He's taken an interest in what's gone on in the state, and without having that kind of support, the word doesn't get out. But the thing that amazes me with the whole initiative process, especially with the Let's Go Washington group, is how engaged the people have become. And it really, in my mind, is because there aren't a lot of options. We don't have good media. We don't get honest media. The politicians, people like me, are doing the best we can, but we're such a minority. And then getting out to educate the voters is another piece to really me being a candidate. I love engaging with constituents when they don't understand the process, because they need to have an honest, trustworthy individual that can give them the facts and not give them a bunch of rhetoric or whatever they're accustomed to. So that's a huge piece. But the initiatives that we've got on are basically there to help and support and make Washingtonian citizens' lives easier and less expensive. Right. And if we let those go through, it's going to be a disaster on every level.
Well, Andy Valrosa just made a comment that I think is very valid. The better job the legislature, I think what he means, the better job we do in the legislature, the less need we're going to have for initiatives. We don't screw things up in the legislature. We don't need to spend all this time and money putting out initiatives for common sense stuff, because the common sense stuff will be done.
Yeah.
So if elected, what are you hoping to fix and how?
Well, the first one I think we need to really seriously look at is the sanctuary state and city situation, because if we really were to get down to the real nitty gritty of why and where and what's happening, it's mostly the crime that we're experiencing right now is because I call them foreign invaders, the illegals that are in the state. It's happening all over the country, with the rare exception of Florida, where they've been pretty hard line about what they do and don't do with the illegals coming in. And as long as we have the those people coming in and no accountability, we don't know where the kids are. It just goes on and on and on. And we've got to stop this. So one of the things with the drug fentanyl that's happening, if we shut the border down, it'll curtail it a little bit. It's not going to stop it, but it'll curtail it. Our housing situation, I believe, has a huge impact from the number of illegals that are coming into the state. And our medical, law enforcement, almost every aspect of everyday society has been impacted from a sanctuary city state status. And until we get a handle on who's coming and going in our state, it's kind of hard to have law enforcement do their job. And then on top of that, we don't have legislators in Olympia that are really having our best interest first. I mean, it's great that, we've got a few people like me, but we're just a handful. We've got to have more of support and people like me that can basically say, no, this is wrong. I'm sorry that some of these illegals had it so bad wherever they came from, but you can't come into the United States illegally and then expect to get all the benefits that our kids and our seniors and our veterans and all the other people in the United States that are here legally don't have. And then who's going to actually pay for all those programs for the illegals to get all of the things they're getting? I don't know about anybody else, but I'm tired of seeing my property taxes go up. You work harder and you're getting less. So we've got to start really playing hardball and look at the big picture and try to figure out what are the root causes. And once we get to that point, then a lot of this is going to, kind of play out.
Yeah. Well, you just hit on another issue that I wanted to go into. You went to property taxes. There was an issue that was coming up here in Washington State. I think it was defeated, thank God, where right now there's kind of a rule where your property taxes can't go up more than 1% a year. They were trying to increase that to 3%.
Right.
And that failed. So if in Olympia, I'm sure you, let me ask you, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Will you try to curtail the increase of property taxes from 1% to bigger than 1%, or will there be exceptions? What do you think?
I think not only stop it, but I think we need to figure out a way to decrease it. The people that are paying the property taxes are the property owners. We've got other people that aren't paying anything, and the onus is on the property owners. So we've got to start looking at this in a bigger picture. And right now, I don't know everything because obviously I've never been to Olympia, but there's got to be a way that we can check and balance and figure out where the tax dollars actually are going. And if that means we do a complete audit with every single agency, then we need to start doing these things. We do it in our own homes with our budgets and our households and that kind of thing. So why would we not want to do that in the state, especially when we've got so many, issues that are just coming to the forefront? And, it's kind of sad that we're the number one crime state in the country. That to me is just unbelievable. I've lived here almost 39 years and I'm just like, it's sad. And why should our citizens be forced to continue to do more and more with less and less? So.
Timothy Ramsey commented on something. He says, all the time and money that we spend on initiatives is less that we can spend on good Republican candidates. They know this. I think that's a good point. Republicans often are strapped for cash in this state. And a lot of that is due to the fact that, part of it might be that we're spending a lot of time trying to put out initiatives that we know can pass. But then we can't focus on putting in good candidates for office. So
one of the things really with the whole political arena is as long as the people are not being engaged, we're going to get what we get. And I'm really excited. The 5 years that I've been running for office compared to 2020 to where I'm at right now, I am so excited. People are engaged. The churches, which historically haven't been a huge voting bloc, are starting to get engaged more and more. We're seeing people that are really trying to understand, trying to learn. And, the honest fact of it is people don't have time to do politics 24/7. I'm just a creature that loves politics. I grew up around military, and both my husband and my dad's careers were based on politics. So it was always political in my family. But a lot of people don't have that temperament. They don't have the time. They're, doing their life. And so I think one of the things that I'm really excited about is not only educating and helping other people, but I'm bringing honesty and truth and integrity to something that I think a lot of people are questioning now. And they should have been questioning a long time ago, but it's front and center now.
Yep. Well, thank you. And Andy brings up another good point. Renters end up paying property taxes. It drives the rent up. Yes, it drives up rent.
Exactly.
It drives up, I mean, people renting out their homes, they've got to make a profit. Otherwise, they're losing money.
Yes.
And almost no Americans can afford to do that. So, that's a very good point.
I probably didn't explain that quite as well, but yeah, the renters are paying. I mean, basically, the rents are up to the point where, it's sad. We live on Whidbey Island, and NAS Whidbey's here, and a lot of the military people, the active duty, can't even afford to live in Oak Harbor, so they have to go to Mount Vernon. I know people that live in Bellingham. So we're not. Yeah, Mr. Valarosa is 100% correct. The renters are paying a premium because of property taxes.
Yeah. So let me ask you real quick. I'm going to shift to politics here. So you just finished out a primary, and you were kind of written off by some people as somebody who was an outside candidate, didn't really have a chance. Your opponent had a great deal of money. Your opponent was able to put out, I personally got 4 different cards in the mail from her. Mm-hmm. And I'm a huge fan of Yvonne. I think she's a great lady. But I was telling people, look, this race is not over. And you sure showed everybody that it wasn't. And you didn't just win. You had a very dominant performance in the primary. So I wanted to ask, how'd you do it?
Just connected with voters. I started my basically political career in 2020 when I decided to run for Congress, ran in 2022. And when the Shavers incident came out in 2022, I looked at my husband. I said, I'll be running for that race in 24. And I just kept the momentum going. I connect with people. I'm out in the community. I go to events as much as possible. But I think the thing that I see the most is what I said early on. The voters are hungry for truth. And when they find an individual that they can trust for whatever dynamics that entails, that is going to move things forward. And so, I've had people say, well, you won the primary because, name recognition and you were first on the ballot and, all these things. Yeah, that all comes into play.
All those are factors.
Yeah, hard facts. But the reality is I was out working and connecting with people, and I've always said politics, if you're in it for personality, you're probably in the wrong, profession. Mm-hmm. I'm here because I actually believe that this country is in a dire strait. And that's why I decided to run in 2020. And now that I'm running for a state position, I couldn't even have imagined back in 2022 or even during the primary, because I think the stats for the Washington being the #1 crime-ridden state happened fairly recently, but here we are. And now the fight's even bigger. And I am a fighter. I push back. When somebody tells me no, I'll find a different way. If I truly believe that the right is what it should be, I will fight for that. So connecting with the voters was huge. And I don't think I was so much written off. I think that the party, and I use that very generically, the party was looking for somebody that they wanted that basically checked all the boxes. And that's great, but there's more to it than that. And one of the pieces that I think sometimes the party forgets is you've got to go out and talk to the voters. And if you've got a candidate like me that's out talking to the voters and actually understanding what their needs, their wants, their desires, then that is an integral piece that they either have not tapped into or don't understand, or whatever the case may be. But I did not come into this race, in 2024 to get a ton of money. Well, I didn't do it in 2020 or 2022. because I personally don't think money should be the driving force with politics. And I think we're starting to see people that understand that based on how the donations are going out. The donations that I got were from a couple businesses and from constituents. I got no PAC money. I got no party money, which Yvonne did. And so there lies her big money pool. And my goal now is to continue doing what I've been doing. Money is going to get me more airtime. I need to be out there as much as possible. The primary proved to me that 26,000 plus people do not know the story of Mr. Shavers, and it needs to be out there. So the money is going to be integral moving forward, and that will happen, because I think this seat is very, very winnable. The stats are there. There's a lot of eyes on this race, and I'm excited. And I'll be real honest, I'm still a little bit in awe. I worked hard, and my hard work paid off, but it's almost surreal because I've worked so hard and to be here. But the tremendous amount of support, the people that have been my biggest fans have turned into lifelong friends. And this is the joy of politics for me. I have some of the most amazing people supporting me, and I'm going to keep reaching out, and I will hopefully make more and greater friends as well. So,
yeah, no, I ran for office myself back in 22.
mm-hmm.
And it was for treasurer, so not exactly local treasurer, so not exactly like one of those keep you up at night races.
Yeah.
But it can get brutal. It can get brutal, but there are some good parts to it too.
Well, I just want to share a quick story. So when President Trump was assassination attempt on July 13th, I was watching that live, and I'm a huge Second Amendment gal. I've been around arms my whole life. So I knew instantly what had happened. And I have never really worn my stories on my sleeve. I mean, I'll talk personal sometimes, but after July 13th, I felt like it was important that I come forward and start talking about this particular incident. And both in 2020 and in 2022. And the reason I'm bringing it up, when President Trump said they're coming after us, they did. They came after me. I was the only woman in 2 races, and I had 2 death threats. And the second one was pretty horrendous. I'm very emotional about it because I tried to back burner it, but now that it's, kind of front and center and people understand what it's about, we need to have these conversations. Just because I have different political ideologies doesn't mean that somebody has the right to do that or do what was done to me. And so moving forward, I'm still here. And I think that kind of goes back to, my race. I don't give up. I was threatened horribly, and I'm still here. And the very few people that do know about it, who know me personally, know that's the kind of person that I am. And moving forward now, I just would hope that people on both sides, come together, put your differences aside. The candidates that you wanted that didn't win, support the candidate that did win, because it's going to be imperative. And we all saw and we know how that goes. So with that being said, I am hoping that Yvonne's people will support me. I'm hoping that the party will get behind me as they have been, and we can win this seat. But we also need to remember that the governor's seat is going to be instrumental in moving forward. And I keep trying to explain to people, we've been a Democrat governor state for 40 plus years. It's not going to get that red conservative person the first time up. And so at this point, our option is Bob Ferguson, who we know not only is dishonest and just plain evil. We have a man who has already been to Congress multiple times, already knows how to operate, and will come in first day on the job knowing what needs to be done. And with his law enforcement background, I think that's imperative, especially now that we're the number one in the country for crime.
Yeah,
So,
no, I agree. I think all the serious Republicans have gotten behind Dave Reichert, or
yep,
at least are saying that they'll vote for him.
yeah,
There's a couple of trolls out there who exist purely to be trolls,
right.
who aren't going to do it. That's fine. They're not serious. We don't take them seriously. And if they want to discuss why they are the way they are, perhaps I'll have them on my show sometime. But one other question that I wanted to ask is, and you kind of covered it, but what I just want to make sure I ask it. Fentanyl has become a serious issue in this
Right.
state. It has become an issue where I looked it up, it was every 14 minutes they are assessing that we're losing someone to fentanyl in this
Right.
state.
Yep.
So during our conversation, somebody died of fentanyl.
Couple people. Yeah.
What is it that what ideas do you have that you could bring to the legislature that could help combat fentanyl?
Well, one of the things that I've been really, really intrigued with is Dr. Raul, that's running for Senate against
Raul Garcia.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if you have not had a chance to listen to him or heard him speak, I would highly encourage everybody to listen to him. And I was at a event and he was speaking, and I have a little bit of medical background. And I asked him specifically about fentanyl. What were some of the, effects, what happens? And he is an ER doctor practicing still. And fentanyl originally was for cancer blockage type thing. And he broke it down into the amount and the quantities and all the effects. But one of the things that's been interesting, we talk about how to stop it, but what are we going to do to help the people? Because it's not like somebody just takes fentanyl one time and yes, they do die sometimes, but there are a lot of people that are using fentanyl on a daily basis. And the problem that happens is that it builds up. And so it gets worse and worse and worse. And that needs to be addressed. So I would encourage everybody, listen to what Dr. Garcia has to say, because it's really eye-opening and it gave me some insight. I think one of the things that we've got to start doing is looking at why is the drug problem so bad? Who are the people that are using the drugs? There's so many aspects to the fentanyl, and it goes back to the same thing that I said earlier about, stopping the flow of illegals. That would help. But I'm a little bit older than some of you all, and I remember in the day we used to have commercials on TV, about drug usage, and those have basically gone away. Our kids are just inundated with screens at every level. And so why not target especially our young people and young adults that are on screens and start doing ads, don't use drugs. Be cautious when you're doing things. I have a friend in Utah who just lost her 26-year-old son to fentanyl, and it was a complete accident. And she has been absolutely devastated. So we've got a problem with fentanyl, but what do we do with the people that are off fentanyl? And we get into an insurance issue with medical insurance. If medical insurance only gives you X number of, opportunity or time, money or whatever, that needs to be explored as well, because that's not sometimes just a quick fix. So I think one of the things I'm excited about is, I don't know for sure because I haven't looked, but if we've got legislators that have that medical background, that's imperative, or if we don't, then we go and research and find the people that can give us the best information so that when we get to a point where we are legislating anything that has to do with drugs, that we're knowledgeable about what's happening. And that kind of a one thing I want to just bring up, the sex predator laws that are happening here in the state right now. they're being released at an alarming rate with huge numbers of offenses, and they're being released. And I heard that there was a bill that was did not pass, but they're going to try to bring it to session next session to make it even easier for these people. And it's like after, several incarcerations, and we're talking 18-month-old children. I'm not kidding.
How many incarcerations do we? Yeah, one and you're done, in my opinion.
Well, and so why I'm bringing this up, talking about legislation, whatever happened to the three strikes were out? Because that was voted on by the voters in, I believe, 1993. And
so I think the reason that that's no longer a thing is because sometimes people would commit felonies that aren't as serious as the ones that we're talking about right now, and then end up getting life in prison for possession of marijuana.
Well,
that might be extreme.
Yeah, but there were some changes done for like robbery and that kind of thing. But the bottom line is, if the voters are seeing that a three strikes law is working, or they want that, why are we not, looking at that kind of legislation again? And granted, if they got popped for marijuana or something like that, we need to look at that on a realistic level now, especially since marijuana is legal in the States. So there's going to be some things. But, when you have a repeat offender, especially when they're hurting children or hurting another human being, enough's enough. And they are being released at an alarming rate. And that is very, very alarming to me personally. I've got some domestic advocacy background, and I'm just alarmed at what's happening. And the people have nowhere to go because their hands are tied. Law enforcement's hands are tied, and it's a trickle-down effect. So
there's two different ideas that I've heard so far. One was from Raul Garcia, as far as going back to the fentanyl issue.
Mm-hmm.
To combat it, was he wants to charge people who sell fentanyl with attempted murder. And then Clyde Shavers, your opponent, came up with believes in a two-pronged approach where we educate young children on drugs and also fix law enforcement and allow them to prosecute further. So what would you do?
So prosecution, huge, because as long as we're going to have, our judicial system that, if law enforcement's arresting somebody and then we turn around and, slap them on the hand and they get to go back out, I think that's a huge problem. So the prosecutory process needs to really be revamped. And as far as young people being, what Mr. Shavers referred to, I understand, I believe where he's going with that, but I also think that that's, not the responsibility of the educational system to be doing every social aspect of a child. If they don't have parents, I understand that piece, but one of the things that I'm seeing with the education is we're not doing education anymore. We're dealing with, behavioral issues, mental issues, drug issues. And so the kids are not learning anything. And we're going to continue down this path until somebody, and I don't know if legislation's the only solution, but, parents need to start understanding that you do have a voice, and I want to help you be that voice. And if it means I have to legislate so you guys have a voice for your own children, I'm going to do that hands down every time. But we cannot expect the schools to fix every single aspect that's wrong with society. I don't think that's what we should be doing.
Right. And you're jumping right into my next question, so I just wanted to ask it. So as far as education, your opponent is, I believe, the vice chair of the education committee. Mm-hmm. So where do you differ from his stance on education? What would you do differently? How would you improve upon our education? Because I mentioned to him, and I'm mentioning to you, locally here in LD10, we've got, Stanwood Camano, we've got the Whitby school districts. We are not up to par with where we should be nationally as far as reading, writing, and mathematics. Right. So what do you think we should do, if anything, to try and improve those numbers?
So I actually was going to go back and get my teaching degree, and I could have gotten it pretty quick with my background. And I honestly decided not to do it because I was not going to be teaching. I was going to be doing politics. And one of the things that I think we've got to start really looking at is the dollars need to follow the student. Parents need to have a choice where their kids go to school. And if the curriculums are not adequate for what those parents want for their kids, then they need to have an opportunity to take their children wherever they need to go, or that money follows them. My mom was a special ed teacher, so I understand that side fairly well. I've listened to Mr. Shavers at one budget meeting, and then I've heard him periodically, and it's great to keep spending money, but you're spending money and the results are not very good. And to, continue to just throw money at districts without any accountability. And the first thing, the parents, the children's families need to have the responsibility and the say what goes on in the classroom. And I don't want to see my kid, at 5 years old being taught sex ed, and it's not even sex ed anymore. So we have dummied down education to the point where all we do is social issues, and the kids are not getting the basics: reading, writing, arithmetic, shop classes, home ec, basic life skills, things that they've got to go out into the real world and know, or they're not going to be able to produce what we need in a society that we want to be productive. And right now, the educational system is totally broken. We all know what COVID did. And when I was running for Congress, I used to say, what were parents doing prior to COVID? Did you not know what your kids were being taught in school? Were you not being proactive? Were you not in the classroom? I'm a huge advocate for cameras in the classroom. If we're going to have our law enforcement wearing them, why can't parents have the right to see what their kids are doing or not doing, or what the teachers are doing or not doing? But when we are not teaching the bare basics, and we're going to expect children to go out and be productive, but they don't have the skills, then the failure is now on. It's not even the lawmakers anymore. It's got to be the school officials that are going to start taking responsibility. I just think that the money that's being spent is not being spent wisely. And I spent most of my daughter's educational career in the classroom by choice. I gave up a good job to be a stay-at-home mom, and I ended up being in the classroom. And it was pivotal for me because I got to interact with the teachers, get to know the administrators, saw what the curriculum was. And granted, we hadn't gotten into the DEI curriculum and the sex ed, but I've always said, if you've got children that are being exposed to things that you don't believe in, you have every right to go in and demand and question. And I will be your biggest advocate for that, because until the parents make the decision and make that choice that they don't want their children to be taught the, things that I would not want my child to be taught, then we've got problems. And the problems are, our kids aren't learning. So.
Well, all right. And that's the questions that I had. I had one about housing, but we tackled that at the beginning. So, well, thank you so much. And I wanted to give you an opportunity for a final statement for your campaign. Tell people how to find you, and the floor is yours.
So I just wanted to share that the biggest reason I'm running for the LD10 position one is when Mr. Shavers was dishonest about his military service. As a Navy wife and daughter, it was insulting. It's insulting to every veteran that I have ever spoken to, and it's insulting to the legislators. They put him into a veteran committee, and that to me was unconscionable. So me running for this office, I can guarantee I will be honest. I will be absolutely truthful, and I will come into this with the constituents that I represent, the state, and the love of my country. And I ask for your support, and I know I can do this with your help. But more than anything, we have some huge obstacles to combat, and I would like to do it for you all. Please get a hold of me. I'm starting to get inundated with questions, and I treasure every one of those questions. So please get a hold of me. I need financial support. That's greatly appreciated. My website's getting worked on right now. There is one up that has a donation and a little bit of information, but Carrie Kennedy for WAD.net. And I just wanted to thank all of you, and thank you, Richard. I appreciate your support as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, it's always fun to talk to candidates. Probably more fun for me because I'm not the one getting targeted. But
that's okay.
It's thank you so much for coming on, and I hope we will be able to get you closer to the general. Hopefully for another meeting to see how things are going.
Well, I appreciate it. And I just wanted to say, if anybody would like to have me come do a meet and greet, any event that you'd like me to come speak to, just get a hold of me. Calendar's starting to get full, so please get a hold of me, and I'd love to do that. So thank you, everybody, and thank you again, Richard.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Okay, take care.